Every year, there's a unique, fascinating, and perhaps slightly bizarre event that happens in Santa Fe, New Mexico. The fiery spectacle created by artist and eccentric Will Shuster has been part of Santa Fe folklore since 1926. It has spawned similar festivities, but none quite the same as the spectacular annual event in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Fort Marcy Park near the historic plaza is the setting for this crazy and offbeat tradition. Behind the smoke, fireworks, and flame, a small army of volunteers will be toiling at the task of incinerating Zozobra, also known as Old Man Gloom. Backstage, the scene reminds one of the frantic band of Lilliputians besetting a highly inflammable Gulliver. Zozobra, the definitive kickoff to Fiesta Weekend. The day begins as Santa Feans and visitors to the city different make their way to Fort Marcy Park. The Kiwanis Club volunteers welcome spectators who arrive early to watch the preparations as they unfold for the evening's dramatic spectacle. Lively sounds of mariachis join in with rock bands in a mixture of music genres. There's the presentation of the Fiesta Queen and her court. News reporters and cameras document the arrival of over 50,000 people. And surrounding neighbors hold their own festive parties. To the uninitiated, with all this hoopla going on, the big question is bound to be, what the heck is Zozobra?
It's something that you put all your bad feelings in, and then when they burn it, they burn all the feelings, and you get rid of all the feelings that you had the year, and you start a new year with good feelings.
Zozobra is just a saying of have good times and not bad times. That's what I think.
Well, there's this man, and he made this little puppet, and he put him in his backyard. And each year, he had a little backyard. A bunch of people came to watch him burn. And each year, they got a little bigger, and the guy had a really small yard. So then they said, why don't we put him up on a football field?
Zozobra was a sea entity or monster.
3 words to describe Zozobra: pagan, pagan, pagan.
Zozobra, it's something I've been involved in most of my adult life. I've found it extremely difficult to explain it to people without at least a picture or a sketch or something. But it's just something that Santa Fe does that nobody else does, and that you can be a part of it. You feel pretty proud of it.
Many believe that Gus Denninger, a longtime Zozobra devotee and Kiwanis member, summed it up best when he said, Zozobra is a hideous but harmless 50-foot boogeyman marionette. He is a toothless, empty-headed facade. He has no guts and doesn't have a leg to stand on. He is full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. He never wins. He moans and groans, rolls his eyes and twists his head. His mouth gapes and chomps. His arms flail about in frustration. Every year we do him in. We string him up and burn him down in a blaze of fireworks. Viva la fiesta. When the Spanish arrived in the Americas looking for gold, they made their way up to what is now New Mexico. They settled there and called its capital Santa Fe, City of the Holy Faith. After a revolt by the Pueblos in 1680, the Spaniards retreated to what is now El Paso. In 1692, after 12 years of exile, they returned to Santa Fe. They resettled and vowed to hold an annual fiesta honoring their reconquest.
La Fiesta de Santa Fe is really a religious activity. It is fulfilling a promise that they would hold these fiestas and these novenas every year in the honor of Our Lady of Peace. And it's been a wonderful promise that has been fulfilled year after year after year.
Thus, on September 16, 1712, began the annual Fiesta of Santa Fe, the oldest such event in the United States. Arriving in New Mexico in the 1920s was an altogether different kind of immigrant. Santa Fe, a remote destination in the wild, wild West, was one of the newest members of the growing United States. The high desert environment was becoming an inspiration and mecca for artists. It was also a health retreat for those suffering from tuberculosis and other lung ailments. Santa Fe was a place out west, where the black sheep of Eastern families could escape their imposed standards and conservative lifestyles, yet remain citizens of the United States. It was the Roaring '20s, a time of new expression and expansion, the age of the railroad and the new highway system. Route 66 passing directly across New Mexico. One of the new arrivals to New Mexico was William Howard Shuster, born in 1894 to a hat maker in Philadelphia. Shuster seemed to always have had a propensity for pyrotechnics and theatrics. Family lore has it that the talented teenager and a buddy built a radio-controlled cannon, promptly blowing a hole in the roof of the family home. The budding inventor turned to his pal and said, "Some spectacle, huh? You betcha." During battle in World War I, Lieutenant Shuster endured the effects of mustard gas used extensively by the enemy. He survived the war, but remained a victim of chronic pulmonary tuberculosis. He was released from the Army in May 1919 and returned home to Philadelphia and his wife, Helen.
His doctor said basically, you have about 1 or 2 or a few months to live here in Philadelphia, or you can go west and die of old age or whiskey. So we went west.
Will Shuster, or simply Shus, arrived in Santa Fe on March 4th, 1920. There he met a group of free-spirited and fun-loving artists who, like him, had migrated from other parts of the country.
And he was curious. He wanted to know who was doing art and so forth. So he met the old artists, and he united them together. Well, anyway, he is one of the founders of the art colony, which is Santa Fe today. And he was very creative in 7 different art fields.
Will Shuster was one of the famous in Santa Fe Cinco Pintores, the 5 painters, who each came out here, all broke in the 20s.
We did not form to become a social club, artist equity society, or anything like that. It was a banding together for survival. There were times when one of us wouldn't sell a painting for a year or so, but maybe one of the others was lucky. We shared each other's luck.
Each built a little adobe house up on the Camino del Monte Sol.
We called them 5 nuts in 5 adobe huts.
There was hardly any homes there, and a lot of chamizo and barren land. And of course now there isn't any space. We posed for them for 25 cents an hour. It was fun.
Shus was a Renaissance man. He was a painter, a sculptor, an etcher, woodcarver, a muralist, and poet. He worked in wrought iron, flagstone, and plaster of Paris. He even constructed adobe homes. His original house stands today with the gates he carved. After his divorce, he moved to the best-known Shuster house, also on Camino del Monte Sol. Here he lived and worked for the most of his life.
Just to our right is where Shuster lived for most of his life, right there.
Shus had a keen sense of humor. Before giving his collection of papers to the Museum of Fine Arts in Santa Fe, he noted on the back of an unimpressive report card, "Evidently, I was not a very bright student."
Santa Fe never had nightclubs to speak of, but there were wonderful house parties everywhere. And in those days, if you saw a bunch of cars parked someplace, you could park your car and go in, as long as you behaved yourself, you were welcome. And there wasn't any aristocracy as such. I knew most of the artists and writers and so forth, and was welcome in their homes.
Santa Fe at that time was incredible. People would put a table near the front door in an entrance hall, and they'd go out, leave the door open. You could go into anybody's house and have drinks. Everybody was the same. Experimental, like children doing something. It was great fun.
Will Shuster probably threw the best of all the parties, and very interesting people there. I was raised on a ranch 25 miles from town, and it was very interesting to me to get to meet these people who had been every place and done everything that maybe sometime I'd get a chance to do.
I always heard that Zozobra and the burning of Zozobra grew out of a gang of Santa Fe deep thinkers who met in something called a Quien Sabe. Who knows? But your entry was predicated not on anything except how well you could tell yarns. And they met periodically, probably about once a month, and they would sit around and talk. And it was extremely private and extremely exclusive, and I heard about it and was very interested in getting into it, and finally managed to get invited once, and I didn't quite make the cut. Shuster was a member, Will Shuster, out of this strange organization, and out of a feeling that Santa Fe's celebration of its reconquest was far too somber and far too religious, and was kind of a downer on the Pueblo Indians. See, because the Pueblo Indians were being reconquered. And so Quien Sabe, I think, was where this idea germinated, to have a, shall we say, a more secular side to this celebration. But who knows whether it's true or not. Whether or not it's true, it's a great idea.
The idea for Zozobra started back in the middle 1920s. A group of Santa Fe's younger bloods, including several from the city's rambunctious new art colony, felt that the fiesta Santa Feans had been celebrating for the past 214 years could be a trifle more lively. E. Dana Johnson, who was editor of the Santa Fe New Mexican, and I got together to hatch out a show for the fiesta. It was a protest against the regular fiesta, which was becoming dull and commercialized. Between us, we worked out the general idea of the new show. Somebody had been down to Mexico and had seen a parade there where they carried a figure of Judas and beat it with colored whips and later burned it. We had our Judas carried in the parade on a litter, and from that the idea developed to build an effigy to be burned at Fiesta.
It was this lively and pyro-infused atmosphere that inspired the birth of Old Man Gloom and a more diverse and lighthearted side to Fiesta Weekend. A favorite, the Pet Parade, allowed locals to show off their animals. And the addition of the hysterical parade countered the sober historical reenactments.
As part of that, in the 1920s, they'd always had a Don Diego de Vargas to portray that conquistador coming into Santa Fe, but they never had a queen, and they decided to have a female counterpart. So they established the queen, who also presides over the fiesta.
But the highlight of the weekend has always been and remains Zozobra.
Well, I was Fiesta Queen in 1944. Actually, it was the last year that we had all the activities on the roof of La Fonda Hotel. We had a terrible drought. It had been a very dry winter, a very dry summer, and Jacques Cartier decided that he would do something very spectacular, a snow dance. He had painted his whole body white, And he had people at different points of the roof with down pillows and huge fans, and everybody had a clue, and they knew exactly when to tear these things open, and there was feathers all over downtown Santa Fe. And poor Mr. Coe, who was the manager of La Fonda, I understand his apartment was knee-deep in feathers, and he said, we couldn't have the fiesta on the roof anymore because it couldn't withstand the pressure of dancing and all.
Will had a party in 1924 at his house, and again in 1925, in which he burnt a monster.
They built a little puppet, maybe 12 feet high or a little larger, and burned it in the yard. And another friend of theirs came up with the idea, well, let's dance around it. And so they danced around it, and they were just goofing off, you know. And they thought that was kind of fun, so they decided to do it the next year and made it a little bit bigger. And had it again in the yard. And the third year, they opened it up to the public because word had gotten out. And they burned it basically where the public library is today.
They wanted to call him Old Man Gloom. So they looked up gloom in the dictionary. But they didn't realize that when you use a dictionary in any language, that's a meaning, yes, but that might not be the meaning that people associate with it. So Zozobra is a very serious meaning. We're the only ones in the world who use Zozobra to mean lightly Old Man Gloom.
Dana dug up that wonderful name Zozobra, meaning the gloomy one, from a Spanish dictionary. And I got to work on the details of the show with a budget of $50. That was how I innocently took the tiger by the tail. The first Zozobra was a rather simple affair. Power company set up a pole about 15 feet high on the lot in back of the old city hall in Santa Fe. Dan Eastman, the son of Max Eastman, the writer, aided me in the work. We swathed the pole in a garment of burlap and stuffed it with excelsior that had been previously soaked in a copper sulfate solution to make green flames when it ignited. Gus Bauman, a well-known artist and famous puppeteer, volunteered to make the head. Somehow or other, Gus and I didn't get together on the scale of the figure. But when the head turned up, it had been wonderfully fashioned by Gus out of cardboard cartons, but was entirely too small for the figure. It sat on top of the pole like a pinhead. It was, I admit, a well-intended, but pretty sorry-looking Zozobra.
In 1960, Tony Hillerman wrote, "It was a modest beginning, with a crew of 5 handling the execution, and the audience consisting of the participants themselves and the few idly curious who will collect to see anything burn. And so Will Shuster got into the monster business, and in Shuster's words, my great pre-fiesta worry." In September 1926, the year of the first Zozobra, Shuster wrote a paper called Orchestrated Fire. In it, he says,
"Here in fire, you will recognize an element which, if ordered and controlled rhythmically with sound, will create a spectacle capable of creating tremendous emotional excitement. I propose this as a new and spectacular art form, fire."
If you look at a lot of his paintings, there's fire, lots of fire. This 1927 and 1953 paintings by Shuster of the burning of Zozobra, of lots of flame. This is a 1939 Blessing of the Woodsman with all kinds of flames in the background. There's fire in Zozobra.
Folklore has it that one night Will Shuster gave pieces of paper to his buddies at a bar and encouraged them to write down their troubles. He then gathered up the papers, set them on fire, and declared all of their gloom vanquished. This was during the Great Depression, and the idea proved inspirational. Every year, items such as love letters, divorce papers, and traffic tickets are hidden in Zozobra's stuffing to burn away gloom. Hence, it has become an important part of the Zozobra tradition.
One of the things that I've always found really interesting about Zozobra in the past is that we're requested to put glooms in Zozobra to burn away for people. And some of those objects have included mortgage deeds, divorce documents. I've actually put in jackets from companies that people worked for.
Year after year, as the idea of burning Zozobra took hold, the spectacle became increasingly elaborate. Jacques Cartier, a dancer who had migrated to Santa Fe from the East Coast, was recruited to perform a fire dance.
I guess I must have been in on the first one. Shu said, "Would you do something?" I said, "Sure. What can we do?" So we sat down. He had the idea of glooms. That was from Spain, that the glooms in white would come and kowtow to the god of sorrow. We'll have them come down the steps moaning and groaning, and when they get to the bottom, they'll fan out and face their master and bow, and I appear at the top in front of him, and they scream and run. Shu said, "Let's take it longer. You dance down the steps, and I will give you 2 torches, and you go up with them and then light powder trains." And the powder trains ran around and lighted the tumbleweed that had crankcase oil on it. Oh, you damn near killed me 6 times. He broke both ankles, thank God, not at the same time.
Each year, Cartier performed a dramatic dance and supervised the little glooms in a ritualistic performance preceding the burning. He danced at Zozobra for over 30 years.
My parents have been friends with Jacques for many years, and I studied with Jacques for about 3 years in ballet with my older sister. In 1969, Jacques called my wife and I up at home in Albuquerque and said that I'm ready to retire, I'm done with the burning of Zozobra, and would you please be the fire dancer? Well, we were just ecstatic. We thought that was just absolutely wonderful. And so he goes, "Well, I'm going to meet you up in Santa Fe, and I'll meet you at the top of the steps, and I'll show you how to do this thing, and we'll take a few minutes, and then you're done, and away you go." I don't actually light Zozobra. It's done mechanically. Jacques Cartier lit Zozobra up until 1964-65. The getting of Jacques' costume was, Jeanette and I went to his home in Pewaukee, and he showed us all of the costumes that he had. He carried around with him from years and years on all of his international productions. He himself made the hat, and that hat stands 4 feet tall, and I think he started putting the final hat together in the early 40s, 41, 42. He made all of his costumes. And these bamboo right here are all the same original bamboo. We've added these over the years. They've broken off the what have you.
And although the hat was turned over to the Folk Art Museum, we realized we didn't have time to make a new hat, so we had to go back to the Folk Art Museum and reborrow the hat. And we've been borrowing it ever since.
This is my daughter, Donika.
After Chip became fire dancer, his family joined in the performance and have made Zozobra their family tradition.
She joined us in '88, and my son, he joined us in '88 as well.
Having been adopted by Santa Fe, Zozobra's pyre has moved from the obscurity of a firehouse lot to Fort Marcy Park. He was given his own special place of honor, and it remains so today. Every year, Shuster looked for ways of refining the show, but Zozobra himself basically remained the same.
We were still burning him tied to the stake, but now we got the idea of the arm-waving part. The chomping jaws and the rolling eyeballs were to come later.
The voice is a case of standing in the wrong place at the wrong time, and Shus and 3 or 4 of us were sitting around there admiring our handiwork. The fireworks are all set, and we're kind of congratulating ourselves that it didn't fall down. And then Shus says, "Well, by the way, who's going to make the noise? Who's going to groan tonight?" And Wyatt Davis said, "Well, I'm going to be in Albuquerque." And Joe Lawler says, "Well, I can't make it." So they turned around to Harold, and I felt like a private in the Army. I need a volunteer. You. So I came up with the idea of holding the microphone in my hand and making a hollow sound, so it sounds like, you start out, this is what you have to watch. You start out very slow and easy, because he burns a long time.
On the night of the show, a circle of bonfires was lighted around the base of the figure. The Kiwanians in black robes circled slowly about Zozobra, carrying green torches and chanting a dirge. On cue, Witter Binner, a renowned poet, leading a large group of fiesta merrymakers, all in gay costumes and waving bright-colored whips, dashed out of concealment and drove off the glooms, who were ghost-like figures. The effigy was lighted, Roman candles and red fires were set off, and with much hilarious shooting, the merriment was underway.
Zozobra was becoming a star. By the 40s, he was a regular in the fiesta lineup. On many occasions, celebrities, reportedly including Santa Fe and Greer Garson, enjoyed anonymity by disguising themselves as glooms. In 1940, the Santa Fe Trail, starring Errol Flynn, Olivia de Havilland, and Ronald Reagan, premiered in Santa Fe.
Here's a photograph I always liked. By the look on his face, probably he was afraid of getting scorched. They were having the premiere of Santa Fe Trail here, and many of the stars were here for the event, including Flynn. So we built a sort of second cousin to Zozobra to celebrate the event.
He was dubbed Tio Coco, Uncle Boogeyman. During World War II, the effigy had the face of Emperor Hirohito, Adolf Hitler, and Benito Mussolini. His name was Hero Hitlermus. One Zozobra was shrunk to 8 feet to conserve lumber and other materials. Another year, there was no Zozobra at all. Then Hollywood, in a 1947 film called Ride the Pink Horse, recreated a parade around the Santa Fe Plaza, complete with a remarkable Zozobra replica. In 1950, Schuss masterminded the Santa Fe entry for the famous Tournament of Roses parade in Pasadena, California.
This business of painting with flowers is new to me, but extremely interesting. It is not only a matter of color, but of texture. Quite a trick.
This monster float won the National First Award representing the state of New Mexico.
And then there was the year that the dancers didn't show up. The preliminary dancing, a ritual involving a platoon of heavily costumed glooms paying homage to Zozobra, was to have been handled that year by a troupe performing in a fiesta pageant, but they backed out due to fire hazard. Luckily, the Pueblo Indians were in town for a dancing competition of their own. I went over to their encampment with an interpreter and found the governor of the Pueblo and told him we had decided to give him the honor of lighting the fire. The show they put on was the most wonderful thing you ever saw, and it was strictly right off the cuff without any plans or rehearsing.
Schuster's art pays homage to Old Man Gloom on the sheet music cover for the official Fiesta song, which was written in 1947. Then there was Dula Zozobra in 1980 by John Spagnola.
Dula Zozobra, The Marvels, written by John Spagnola. That's not me, that's my son. And that's what we have here. That was released in 1983.
I look out and I see your face. I was cataloging his 80,000 items of his life. One day I threw some paper in the wastebasket and found the head. So I went to Mrs. Shuster next door and she said, Mrs. Shuster, look what I found. She said, yes, that's Zozobra, the model. But she said, it breaks. It's soapstone. She said, you want it? I said, yes. But she said, it'll take a lot of glue. So I glued it together. And this is the model that he used to tell him this is how it should look like.
Schuster's creation became synonymous with the man himself. He and Zozobra were famous.
Now he's so closely identified with me that many of Santa Fe's youngsters call me Zozobra. I'm not a particularly gloomy guy either.
Schuss was always in charge of the building, from ordering the wood to orchestrating the burning. It was a massive undertaking for one man.
3 of us work about a solid week to make the parts of the figure, which are hauled out on the morning of the show to the site on a large flatbed truck. There, the construction crew of the power company and a detail of about 15 prisoners from the state penitentiary work with my crew to assemble and erect the figure.
Will used to get anywhere 10, 12, 14 trustees from the penitentiary. Well, that was a delightful way to do things until one year, I think he had about 12 or 13 trustees to start off with, and about 10 of them went back, so that kind of put the kibosh on them doing any more work.
In that same 1960 article, Hillerman said Shuster's friends, and that includes a remarkably large percentage of Santa Fe citizens, will tell you that he was trapped into the grueling annual task of monster building strictly through his own fault. Shuster's Zozobras came in many models, especially in the early years, but whether they were bald with sagging jowls or featured ferocious jutting features under black fright wigs, they were always just the thing to capture Santa Fe's lively imagination. The City Different found that it could no more have Fiesta de Santa Fe without Zozobra than Boston could celebrate Patriots' Day without fife and drum. Nor, it seemed, could there be Zozobra without Shuster. However, as Shuster got older and Zozobra grew in stature and reputation, the Zozobra family expanded. Shuster enlisted the help of the local Kiwanis club. The loyal followers include a family-owned fireworks company that has been with the event since 1952.
Well, one year, Will had stored a bag of 25 pounds of black powder in his garage all year and decided we have to use it up. So he suggested, John, why don't we put a little powder train around the base of the skirt of Zozobra on the inside and fuse it. So fine, I did it, fused it, which obviously was a mistake, as it turned out. And Zozobra simply disappeared. He disappeared in one hot blast of white flame, almost as if he was being sent into orbit.
Once, we had everything in readiness, and we were awaiting showtime. And I discovered that none of us had a match to light the doggone thing. So I sent a Boy Scout out to beg some matches from a spectator. The torches were lighted, and the show got underway.
One morning we woke up, no signs were all over town. Somebody having some fun. They went to the trouble of having a print, got them all over. I peeled that one off the Chamber of Commerce door.
The fun I had one year on a bet, I hung an earring on him. And that was one change. And then the next year, once he opened his mouth, there was a great big gold tooth sitting there.
Eventually, Shuster constructed a scale model that is now installed in the Museum of New Mexico in the Palace of the Governors.
All this, I guess, is stereotypical museum here because, people, when they think of curators and collections, it's down in the bowels of the museum with webs and all of this stuff. We have security. This is the curatorial office. Fine place, my favorite place in a museum, the heart of any museum operation. And we come into this storage room for collections where we mostly have furniture, but if you pan up to the right, you will see Will Shuster's model of Zozobra right here, live and in the flesh. We're real proud to have this here. This is the basis for all subsequent Zozobras, and Will Shuster willed the model to the Kiwanis Club, and they used it for years and years. And then a few years ago, I think now 3, maybe 4, they turned it over to the museum, so we'll preserve it for posterity.
Late Gus Denninger, a local dentist, joined the Zozobra family in the 50s. He and Harold Gans built another working model that is still used today. The design is so precise that after the frame is completed, the scrap wood that remains only fills a small trash can.
I came to Santa Fe in 1952 and I took that picture, and I wondered how they made anything so big. I was interested because I've always been a builder. Next year I went over there where I found out where they were going to start, and I stood around and watched. And Shuster just handed me a piece of wire, and he said, "Here, do this." And so I did it. From then on, I was hooked.
We used to start building it from a model, and we would come and we would measure one piece of the model, and we would cut one stick 1 inch to a foot. And then I started collecting a book here with measurements and plans, and we've been working from the plans ever since.
Gus Denninger's really dear to me because he was the man who actually took me under his wing, so to speak, and wanted me to learn all the nuances of the blueprint. He wanted me to memorize all the little details that went into which nail went where and which wire was tied where, which pulley did what. And I affectionately call him the blueprinter of Zozobra because he took the time, before I ever joined the club, to get a model that was scale to what they were doing and make a blueprint set, a box set of the entire Zozobra.
Well, we missed the upper lip one year. We forgot the forehead, or we put the hair down too long, so they ended up with no forehead. He's changed his expression. Sometimes he's real grim, sometimes he's real happy. One time he looked like a little pixie. It just depends on who is building it and how it comes out. I mean, it's not that solid a form. I mean, we have a framework, but on the framework, my artistic talents and many people show up. It's fun. I mean, if it weren't fun, it would be quite a chore.
Same thing as we were talking about in the building, in the fireworks, there are staples to Zozobra, how Zozobra must be burned. The powder train must go off. The Niagaras then must flame and fall down. And then Zozobra must be lit. And the crown that sits on top of his head, that signifies that he's the king of doom and gloom, must fire and spray down to let you know that Zozobra is now gone, that we've actually vanquished him for another year. This is our Zozobra book. Every caretaker of Zozobra has had a book. Before this book, which you see, which is Ray Valdez's, Gus Denninger had his book. It's funny because these are extremely detailed plans, but a lot of the things that you learn this being my 20th year, is from experience. What Shuster used to do was that they would have the two eyes like this, and one would pull on the elastic and this one would go down and this one would stay up. And so we had a cross-eyed Zozobra. So Harold and Gus came up with a way, it's pretty ingenious, a way in which they actually put a wire center through the two eyes so that way you could move them together. And this is all intentional, by the way. You know, sometimes it might even be smart for Ray and myself and a lot of other people who've been working on silver for many years, Harold, of course, to get some of these secrets down on paper, because this book is very important to us.
Santa Fe, sus fiestas de septiembre se celebran en la capital, con Zozobra quemando las penas, y a la fiesta va a comenzar. Sus mujeres llenas de alegría, pregonando van su nuevo amor, a la luz de grandes luminarias, van cantando esta canción. Sí, señor, cómo no, vámonos al vacilón, a cantar y a bailar esta linda población. Sí, señor, cómo no, vámonos al vacilón, a bailar y a cantar esta linda población. fiesta is the time for singing, dance, and play. At this time we do not have this fiesta, as Zozobra burns the gloom away. And steel guitars are a softly strumming music. Senoritas, come along with me.
You know where that goes, Ron?
Have some fun and to see Santa Fe, la Conquistadores way. Sí, señor, como no. Let's go out and have some fun and to see Santa Fe, la Conquistadores way. Santa Fe, sus fiestas de septiembre se celebran en la capital, con Zozobra quemando las venas, y a la fiesta va a comenzar. Sus mujeres llenas de alegría, pregonando van su nuevo amor, a la luz de grandes luminarias. Van cantando esta canción. Sí, señor, cómo no. Vámonos al vacilón a bailar y a cantar esta linda población. Sí, señor, cómo no. Vámonos al vacilón a bailar y a cantar esta linda población. Sí, señor, cómo no. Vámonos al vacilón a bailar y a cantar esta linda población. Sí, señor, cómo no. Vámonos al vacilón a bailar y a cantar esta linda población. Sí, señor.
The ceremony expanded with a new generation, with Ray Valdez at the helm.
Those of you that are volunteering for the community, this is a really noble cause, and I always say this at all these rehearsals, and I just want everybody to know that how grateful the Kiwanis Club of Santa Fe is for what you do for this community.
This is the opening position to the dance that begins Zozobra. The light will hit me, and then we begin our journey to Zozobra. This is just a walking motion, the greeting of the crowd, and this is where the crowd just goes wild, and you feel like a rock star for a day. You can imagine 30 gloomies and everything. We all descend, and it's somewhere in this time when I will start to see fire, and the torches will come.
As soon as Helene sees us, we come in with flaming torches, and we do our dance to get Zozobra more frightened.
This is a part of the dance where it becomes very frantic because I know fire is on its way. And so fire will start to come. First I attack fire, and fire attacks me. And fire will consume me, and I disappear.
And I do come up and I say, okay guys, I'm here, looking good. He showed me the opening, and over the last 30 years that I've been doing the performance, that opening has not changed.
Well, in, I believe it was 64, in fact, I'm sure of it. Shoes had this, it was rather a mild heart attack, but it was a heart attack. And he was very upset, wondering what was going to happen to his Zozobra. So I gave him a call one time and asked him if I'd come up and talk to him about it. And I assured him that we would, the Kiwanis Club, keep on building Zozobra in, and I used that fancy word, perpetuity, a long time. And he went along with that, and that's the way it has been, and with any luck, we'll keep it that way.
I think Zozobra, it's something that ties you not only to your community now, it ties you to your ancestors back then. You're bringing the community together for a non-political event. I think no commercialism. What you're trying to do is that the community comes together to celebrate the fact that these three very diverse cultures, the Anglo, the Hispanic, the Native American, were able to find a way to live together and to prosper. That's something that we should celebrate. And the proceeds from this goes into scholarships to help the youth of this community.
My name is Valerie Ingram,
and I graduated from Santa Fe High School in 1985 and received a Kiwanis scholarship. You know, it's a pretty unique case when a civic organization can pull off an event of this magnitude. It's a huge undertaking requiring literally hundreds and hundreds of volunteer hours. It's the only fundraiser we hold all year. We are able to fund between $30,000 and $40,000 worth of projects in the community, including the scholarships from this one event. It's famous.
William Howard Shuster died in 1969, but he died knowing that Zozobra would continue in the care of the Kiwanis Club of Santa Fe. Shuster's eldest son, Don, said, "People used to say that Dad loved pageantry. That was really too sophisticated a word to tag on my dad. Plainly and simply, he loved spectacle. And as he said himself, the bigger the better. If it, whatever it was, sizzled, smoked, popped, boomed, made noise and color, the better he thought it was."
All Santa Fe knows that there has to be a Zozobra. If you don't burn Old Man Gloom, the aspens might not turn their autumn yellow on the mountains, and winter would surely bring gloom and doom. Santa Fe is a great place for controversy, but not for gloom. If Shuster would have claimed that Zozobra was chasing away controversy, nobody would have come.
I especially feel his presence and his ideals and why he did Zozobra the night of the burning. There's a certain period at about 6 o'clock, 6:30, which is about an hour and a half before we turn the lights out and we start lots of fires. And it's that chaotic period where everyone has a question, everyone's working on the last minute details of the show, and there's almost like this calm. I can almost feel like Will Shuster saying, you know, calm down. We've done this so many times before. It's going to happen again. It's going to be easy. But it's that hour and a half right before the lights go out that I get in the zone. And once again, the most powerful thing happens in front of this crowd of 50,000 people plus that makes it all worth it. And I'd like to think Will Shuster is watching and giving us advice from the back.
And when Zozobra meets his fiery demise, filling another generation of Santa Fe children with delicious terror and their parents with inexplicable glee, the odds are good that, in spirit, Shuster will once again be backstage. Big as it is, it's his baby. The gigantic puppet will be both guest of honor and victim at one of the largest and loudest celebrations in the West.
Tonight, the 288th Santa Fe Fiesta.
Buenas noches. On this night of September 7th in the year 2000, I, Judge Barbara Vigil, do hereby pronounce upon you, Senor Zozobra, alias Old Man Gloom, the death penalty. Members of the Kiwanis Club, do your duty!
is our space.